Why would some of Hollywood's biggest stars refuse to attend the funeral of one of the most legendary entertainers of all time? Frank Sinatra wasn't just a singer or an actor. He was an icon, a cultural titan whose influence shaped music, film, and even the very idea of celebrity. His death in 1998 was expected to bring the world together to mourn a man whose voice had defined generations. But behind the solemn ceremonies and the countless fans lining up to pay respects, a shocking truth unfolded. 6 major actors boycotted Sinatra's funeral. It's a story that feels almost impossible to believe. How could stars who once shared stages, parties, and close friendships simply walk away when Sinatra took his final breath? What could drive such a public snub, especially in a world where appearances and loyalty often matter more than the truth? The reasons are as complex as Sinatra's own life, tangled with jealousy, betrayal, whispered rumors, and wounds that never fully healed. This isn't just about a few absent faces at a ceremony. It's about the darker, hidden side of fame. It's about what happens when legends clash behind closed doors and when friendship turns to resentment. In a city built on glamour and secrets, the tale of these 6 boycotting actors reveals the cost of celebrity and the cracks beneath the glittering surface. In this story, you'll meet those who turned their backs on Sinatra in his final hour, and you'll hear the tangled tales that explain why. Some walked away out of anger. Others were caught in a web of controversies and betrayals. And for a few, the reasons remain shrouded in mystery and speculation, whispered only in Hollywood's darkest corners. But there's more. This boycott wasn't just a headline moment. It's a window into Sinatra's complicated legacy, a legacy that wasn't always as smooth as his velvet voice. It exposes how even the most admired figures can become divisive, and how the bonds forged in fame can unravel in unexpected ways. So what really happened? Who were these 6 actors? And why did they choose silence over mourning? Stay with me, because this story goes far beyond the funeral itself. It's a journey through friendship, fame, and the fragile nature of loyalty in the spotlight. And what happened next would shock even the most seasoned Hollywood insiders. Frank Sinatra was more than just a singer. He was a cultural phenomenon who shaped the soundtrack of the 20th century. With a career spanning over 5 decades, Sinatra's voice became synonymous with romance, rebellion, and raw emotion. He wasn't just an entertainer. He was a symbol of an era, a man who transcended music to become a Hollywood legend, a political influencer, and a complex public figure. By the time Sinatra's health began to decline in the late 1990s, he had amassed a lifetime of achievements, multiple Grammy Awards, unforgettable film roles, and a fan base that stretched across generations. But beyond the glitz and glamour was a man whose personal life was often as tumultuous as his career was dazzling. Marriages, friendships, and alliances made headlines, and rumors swirled constantly around his connections, from powerful politicians to rumored ties with less savory elements. When Sinatra passed away on May 14, 1998, at the age of 82, the world braced itself to say goodbye to a legend. The news hit like a shockwave, and the anticipation around his funeral was enormous. It was expected to be one of the most star-studded farewells in Hollywood history, a celebration of a man who had touched so many lives both on and off screen. The funeral was held in Los Angeles, with thousands of fans and celebrities expected to show up. Media outlets lined the streets. Cameras captured every moment, from the solemn procession to the emotional eulogies. Sinatra's influence reached beyond the entertainment industry. Politicians, fellow artists, and loyal fans all prepared to honor his legacy. But beneath this outward display of respect, tensions simmered. Sinatra's later years had not been without controversy. His reputation for charm masked darker chapters filled with broken friendships, political disputes, and whispers about his associations. Not everyone was eager to join the public mourning. The public expected a united front, a gathering of Hollywood's elite to pay tribute. Instead, the absence of 6 major actors sent ripples through the entertainment world. These were not just random no-shows. They were individuals whose relationships with Sinatra had once been close, some even described as lifelong friends. Their absence wasn't just noticed. It was a glaring sign of unresolved conflicts and deeper stories yet to be told. Sinatra's funeral became more than just a farewell. It became a stage where the complicated nature of fame and friendship played out in real time. The man whose voice could fill a room now had an empty seat at his own farewell. As we dive deeper, the real reason behind this boycott will unfold. Stories of betrayals, broken trust, and secrets that Hollywood's polished surface usually hides. What happened to turn friends into strangers at such a pivotal moment? And why did these 6 actors choose to walk away when it mattered most? The next sections will reveal these stories, each more surprising than the last. But for now, remember this. Sinatra's legacy wasn't just about the music. It was about the people he left behind and the fractures that fame can cause. Everyone expected Frank Sinatra's funeral to be a who's who of Hollywood royalty. After all, this was a man who defined an era, a legend whose influence stretched from music to movies to politics. So, when the day arrived, the cameras were ready, the crowds had gathered, and the stars started showing up. But then something strange happened. 6 of Sinatra's closest peers didn't come. Not by accident. They boycotted the funeral. It wasn't just a couple of no-shows. These were big names, actors who had been part of Sinatra's world for decades. Some even called themselves family. And yet, when it came time to say goodbye, they simply didn't show up. Their silence spoke volumes. Why would they refuse to pay their respects? The reasons were tangled. Jealousy, bitter feuds, old betrayals, and personal grudges that hadn't healed over the years. It wasn't just about the man on the surface. It was about what lurked beneath, secrets and conflicts that most people never knew. Among the absentees were some of Sinatra's most famous friends and rivals. Men who had shared stages, movies, and private moments with him, but whose relationships had fractured over time. Their silence sent shockwaves through Hollywood. It was a clear message that all was not well in Sinatra's inner circle. Some said it was Dean Martin, Sinatra's longtime friend and fellow Rat Pack member, who couldn't stand to face the past. Others whispered about Peter Lawford, whose political clashes with Sinatra led to bitter resentment. And then there were more surprising absences, like James Caan and Mickey Rooney, whose reasons were wrapped in stories of broken trust and old wounds. What's even more intriguing is that each actor had their own story, their own reasons for walking away. And these reasons weren't just personal. They painted a bigger picture of Sinatra's complicated legacy, one filled with friendship and rivalry, loyalty and betrayal. This boycott wasn't just a list of names missing from a funeral. It was a statement, a glimpse behind the curtains of fame and fortune, showing that even legends have their shadows. Next, we'll start unpacking these stories one by one, beginning with the first actor whose fallout with Sinatra set the tone for the whole boycott. The truth behind their rift might just change everything you thought you knew. The first actor who famously refused to attend Frank Sinatra's funeral wasn't just any Hollywood star. He was Dean Martin, a man whose friendship and rivalry with Sinatra were as legendary as the music they made together. Known as the King of Cool, Martin was more than a colleague. He was part of the famous Rat Pack, a tight-knit group of entertainers that defined Las Vegas and Hollywood in the 60s. But beneath the smooth charm and easy smiles, cracks had appeared. Their friendship wasn't immune to the pressures of fame, jealousy, and competing egos. The two had a complicated relationship, sometimes close, sometimes distant, but always intense. Dean Martin's absence at Sinatra's funeral shocked many because they had shared so much history. The Rat Pack wasn't just a band of friends. It was a symbol of their era, their success, and their bond. Yet, by the late 90s, that bond had frayed. Rumors swirled that their falling out began years earlier, over business decisions and personal slights that never got resolved. Some say Martin felt overshadowed, always in Sinatra's shadow, despite his own huge success. Others point to a final bitter disagreement that drove a wedge between them, one that Martin never wanted to heal. There were whispers about a private argument during Sinatra's later years, where harsh words were exchanged and old wounds reopened. Martin reportedly told close friends he couldn't bring himself to say goodbye to someone he felt had betrayed him. But it wasn't just personal pride. For Martin, the funeral was more than goodbye. It was a moment that forced him to face those unresolved feelings publicly. And that was a step he wasn't ready to take. This absence sent a message louder than any eulogy could. Sometimes, even lifelong friendships aren't strong enough to survive the harsh spotlight of fame and time. But Dean Martin's story was only the beginning. The fallout he experienced set the tone for what came next. The other actors who boycotted had their own reasons, some darker, some filled with betrayal, and others still wrapped in mystery. Next, we'll uncover the stories behind the second and third actors, where rumors and controversies paint a darker picture of Sinatra's final years. What secrets will those stories reveal? Stick around, because it's about to get even more intense. After Dean Martin's absence shook the public, the boycott deepened with the refusal of two more prominent actors, Peter Lawford and Mickey Rooney. Their decisions weren't just about personal grudges. These were tangled in darker stories, whispers of betrayal and bitter conflicts that went far beyond simple friendship fallout. Peter Lawford's break with Sinatra was one of the most public and bitter in Hollywood history. As another Rat Pack member, and notably, the President Kennedy family's brother-in-law, Lawford was once close to Sinatra, but their friendship soured dramatically over politics and personal loyalty. It's said that Lawford was caught in the middle of the delicate Kennedy-Sinatra relationship, a web of favors and disappointments. At one point, Sinatra cut Lawford out of key events, accusing him of disloyalty. Their feud escalated to the point where Sinatra reportedly banned Lawford from the Rat Pack's inner circle and even from his home. The tension wasn't just personal. It was fueled by power, politics, and pride. Lawford's boycott of the funeral was a final public stand in a rivalry that had lasted decades, a statement that some wounds never heal. Then there's Mickey Rooney, known for his candid, no-nonsense personality. Rooney's relationship with Sinatra was complicated by clashes both personal and professional. Rumors suggest that Rooney felt betrayed by Sinatra's shifting alliances in Hollywood. While details are murky, what's clear is that Rooney held a grudge for years, refusing to reconcile before Sinatra's death. His absence was less about the man and more about a history of broken trust that left scars too deep to ignore. These two absences hint at a darker side of Sinatra's life, a side filled with fractured friendships and unresolved conflicts. It wasn't just about fame or fortune. It was about loyalty, betrayal, and the price of standing by your principles. The stories behind Lawford and Rooney show that Sinatra's world wasn't all glamour and music. Behind the scenes, there were battles fought quietly, resentments built slowly, and relationships shattered by more than just time. But these were only two of the six. The next two actors bring yet more layers of complexity, stories of friendship lost and secrets kept in silence. What really drove them away? And what does it say about Sinatra's legacy that so many chose absence over farewell? Keep watching, because the next part reveals these lost friendships and the heartbreak behind them. The deeper you go, the less clear the line between friend and foe becomes. As the boycott story unfolded, the absence of fourth and fifth actors added even more weight to the mystery and tension. These weren't just colleagues or acquaintances. They were people who once shared close bonds with Sinatra, but whose friendships dissolved into silence and distance. James Caan, known for his tough guy roles and fiery personality, was one of the unexpected names on the list. Unlike the others, his feud with Sinatra wasn't as public or well documented, which only deepened the curiosity. Sources say their conflict stemmed from personal betrayals involving Sinatra's inner circle, rumors of broken promises and business disputes that left Caan feeling disrespected and sidelined. Caan's decision to skip the funeral was a clear sign that whatever happened between them was serious. It wasn't just about pride. It was about a friendship that had been damaged beyond repair. For someone as straightforward as Caan, the boycott was his way of drawing a firm line. Then there was Robert Mitchum, a Hollywood legend known for his rebellious spirit and cool detachment. Mitchum's silence at the funeral was particularly striking because he rarely shied away from public moments. The reasons for his absence are wrapped in layers of speculation. Some say a personal dispute. Others hint at deeper issues tied to Sinatra's later years, possibly involving mutual friends or financial disagreements. What's fascinating is how these absences reveal the human side of Sinatra's story. Here was a man who commanded respect and admiration, yet his closest friendships sometimes crumbled under the weight of ego, ambition, and hurt feelings. The glamour masked a web of complicated relationships, some filled with love and loyalty, others with resentment and regret. These lost friendships speak to the fragility of connections in Hollywood, where the line between friend and rival can blur in an instant. For Sinatra, these fractures weren't just personal. They shaped his legacy and the way his final chapter was written. But the story isn't over yet. There's one more actor whose absence still puzzles many, a figure wrapped in mystery and rumors. What kept him away? And how does his story fit into the bigger picture? Stick around. The last piece of this puzzle will bring everything full circle, revealing a truth that few expected. The last actor whose absence at Frank Sinatra's funeral raised eyebrows remains shrouded in mystery. Unlike the others, whose reasons were known or at least heavily rumored, the sixth man chose silence. No public statements, no explanations, just an absence that spoke louder than words. Robert Mitchum was a Hollywood icon, a man with a reputation for being straightforward yet fiercely private. His decision not to attend wasn't just unexpected, it was puzzling. Friends and insiders speculated endlessly, but Mitchum never publicly addressed it. Some say it was due to a falling out with Sinatra in the years leading up to his death, details of which remain closely guarded by those who knew. Rumors hinted at a clash over loyalty, possibly involving financial disagreements or strained ties with Sinatra's inner circle. Others whispered about personal betrayals. Though no one could say for sure, the silence itself became a statement, fueling speculation and mystery. What makes this absence so powerful is what it symbolizes. Sinatra was a man surrounded by fame and friendship, but also by distance and unresolved conflicts. Mitchum's silent boycott was a reminder that even legends can leave behind shadows, secrets that refuse to be buried. This final piece completes the puzzle of Sinatra's funeral boycott. It's a story not just of absence, but of complex relationships, broken trust, and the heavy cost of fame. Behind the glitz, there were fractures that fame and fortune couldn't fix. As the curtain falls on this chapter of Sinatra's life, it leaves us with a bittersweet truth. No matter how legendary, every man's story has its hidden depths, the stories we don't always see, but that shape who they really are. Frank Sinatra's funeral was supposed to be a grand farewell to a legend, a moment for friends and fans to come together and honor a man who changed the world of music and film forever. But the absence of these six actors revealed a different story, one of broken friendships, old grudges, and the complicated price of fame. Their boycott showed us that behind the bright lights and smooth voices were real people with messy, painful histories. It reminds us that even icons have their shadows, relationships that can't always be fixed, no matter how much the world expects them to. So, next time you listen to Sinatra's timeless songs or watch his unforgettable films, remember there's more to his story than the spotlight. It's a story of friendship and rivalry, loyalty and betrayal, a legacy as human and complex as the man himself. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that uncover the hidden sides of Hollywood legends. What do you think was the biggest reason behind the boycott? Let me know in the comments below. See you in the next video.